What's up, guys? So welcome back to another video, another episode of Dango vids, yeah. Well, anyways, I'm gonna be talking about first impressions for The Division, the beta that came out a couple of days or weeks ago. I know I'm late. I'm always late with my videos. I know, okay, but better late than never, I guess. Well, anyways. I know I keep bringing a lot of betas and first impressions on those. That's probably because I'm the beta king, you know? I'm the king of betas. Oh, no. I'm the beta master, or the master beta. Okay, anyways, moving on. I guess I'll start with the graphics. They aren't the prettiest to look at, but they also aren't the worst. This footage is from the PS4 version of the beta, so I'm sure for PC players the graphics can be tweaked to look even better. Also, for console players, you must also remember that due to YouTube compression, what is shown here is worse than what the graphics actually look like in person. You must also remember that this is a pretty big game in regards to map size, and you'll also have to consider the fact that other players can also join you, as well as when you enter the dark zone, there will be even more players. So there has to be a balance between graphics and performance, especially when the platform is consoles. So as I said, the graphics aren't the worst I've seen. In fact, I think they're pretty good, all things considered. This actually brings me to my next point in regards to visuals. Ubisoft did a fantastic job with the world itself. I didn't feel as if I was just thrown into a lifeless box and set on a path to mindlessly grind until I've maxed out my level. And I've played a lot of RPGs, MMOs, and RPG MMOs in my time. And some of the ones I've played do just that. They'll throw you into a huge map, but the map is mostly open space with NPCs that just stand around doing nothing. Now of course, The Division has NPCs that just stand around, mostly vendors, but they also have NPCs scattered around the world, roaming the streets, having conversations, and occasionally approach you for assistance, which helps in giving the illusion that there is a city. Another thing I liked was the detail that Ubisoft put into this world. Now, I'm not from New York, so I can't speak on how well of a job they did recreating the city, but as someone who isn't a city boy, and has only been to the city a handful of times, I can say that Ubisoft does a great job at making the player feel like they're in the city. With the alleyways, roads, tight streets, apartment complexes, billboards displaying ads, roads clustered with abandoned vehicles, and small areas you can loot like apartments and stores, as well as just being surrounded by tall buildings. And that's just what's on the surface. They put as much detail in these subway stations as well as sewer areas you'll have to venture through on missions. But that's not to say that these underground areas are inaccessible outside of missions. You'll also come across street thugs looting corpses or attempting to rob civilians, as well as cleaners which will attempt to purify you with a flame bath via flamethrower. The heads-up display is simple, clean, and doesn't clutter the screen. When you open the menu at first, however, it will take a little bit of time to figure out how things work between the categories and the tabs. But after 15 to 20 minutes of playing around, I got used to it. Now, let's talk gameplay. Alright, so I know a few of you might hear RPG or MMO and immediately start to think dungeons, wizards, complex skill trees, grinding to level up, and high level players constantly trying to ruin your gaming experience. And thus are turned off by the idea. However, don't be discouraged. Yes, compared to arcade shooters where you shoot an enemy 2 or 3 times or once in the head and they die, in The Division it does take a lot more to kill an enemy. This is an RPG after all, but that also depends on the damage output of your weapon and the attributes increased from your gear. So if you have crappy gear or weapons, then yes, it will take a little longer to kill an enemy. But if you're constantly upgrading your weapons and your equipment, then you'll be mowing down enemies. The skill tree along with weapon and gear attributes are straightforward and simple so that anyone can pick the game up and have fun. The other aspect of The Division is the dark zone. Now this area is where you'll get a chance to find some of the best equipment for your character. Now you can find these higher tier items through killing NPCs, buying off of the vendors either located at checkpoints or at safe houses. But the vendors in the Dark Zone have their separate currency called DZ, and their separate level requirements, which depend on how long you've been in the Dark Zone leveling up. You'll also be able to find chests around the Dark Zone which require a DZ key to open. These chests usually contain decent equipment, but I have to mention, when you're looting in the Dark Zone, you can't immediately put on what you find. You'll have to decontaminate that equipment. Now in order to do this, you must get to one of the many extraction points within the game. Once you reach the extraction point, you can then call in a helicopter to come pick up your gear. Your gear will then be taken back to your main base outside of the Dark Zone for decontamination. Then you can return back to the stash, take it out, and put on your shiny new equipment. Now that sounds simple enough. However, when you call in for a helicopter extraction, there is a time limit that you have to wait until it arrives. During that time, NPCs will spawn and try to kill you. Furthermore, sometimes players will come down to the extraction point to try to extract their gear, but sometimes they'll also try to kill you and try to take your gear. The last thing to mention about the DZ is that you will not be alone, because the DZ is a PvP area, meaning you will find other players also scavenging for better gear. Sometimes these other players will mind their own business, or at times come to your aid when you're dealing with enemy NPCs, but sometimes these other players will attempt to kill you.
This guy got fucked up.
Personally, I think that the Dark Zone is where the game shines. As someone who prefers PvE over PvP in almost all MMOs and RPGs, generally I avoid PvP situations. However, in the Division, that was not the case. I actually enjoyed myself in the Dark Zone. And the Dark Zone was a lot of fun because the best part about the Division is that if you're looking for an online co-op experience, you can play with up to 3 players in your squad and take on missions or explore the Dark Zone together, which is what I did when I was playing the beta. I also almost forgot to mention that the Division has a day and night cycle, as well as a weather cycle which ranges between clear, snowfall, and full out snowstorm, which makes for some beautiful scenery. Overall, I was impressed with the beta and I had a lot of fun with the Division. The game had maybe 1 or 2 bugs that I ran into, but nothing game breaking. Personally, I'll definitely be picking up the Division when the game releases. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But that also depends on the damage output of your weapon and your attributes increased from the gear you... Wow, what the frig did I write?